Hi guys, my name's S.L.Ager. I am author of the 11 plus vocabulary novels and workbooks, which you can see there behind me. I just thought I'd pop on today and have a quick chat about closed passages and just give you some tips about how to maybe best approach closed passages. Some people do them very much out from instinct, but there are sort of a few tips and tricks that might help you along the way. I've got some notes up on my screen, so excuse my eyes sort of moving around. And also I've got a new ring light so I can record in the dark, so sorry if you end up with rings like this and I look like the Misterons. Those children of the 60s will remember the Misterons. Anyway, so closed passages, you tend to get two types, so you certainly did when I was working with my children. And those are the type with a big word bank all together, so all the words are together in one big bank, or the type where there are blanks with maybe 3 or 4 word choices by the side. Those tended to be the two different kind of closes that we got. When you are choosing from one big word bank, my biggest piece of advice is do not rush. When you go to fill in an answer, don't rush to do it. Only fill in an answer that you are as certain of as you can be, because if you start with one of those big word banks and use a couple of wrong answers, then you're just going to go further and further and further wrong, because obviously you've already used up 2 wrong answers, so which means you're going to put another 2 wrong answers in somewhere, so you've got 4 answers that are incorrect. So it's a bit easier when you've got the smaller word banks which sit by the sentences, because you've only got a choice of maybe 4 words, so you're not going to go quite as wrong. I hope that makes sense. So my advice is always read a full closed passage first. Don't just read a sentence and try and make things fit. You need to understand the genre of the passage, the time of the passage, the type of passage. Then you'll get a feel for how words fit and the context. And always, sometimes 2 answers is better than 1. So if you have a possible answer in mind, don't dismiss it. Or if you have 2, you can just jot it in the blank as you're moving along. And if you jot it down or jot 2 possible answers down, then you can always just rule one out when you realise that it fits somewhere better. Now, for closed passages, parts of speech or word classes are really quite important, because we can kind of work out, whether an adjective is describing a noun, or whether there's no verb in the sentence, or whether there's some sort of determiner missing, so a, the, an. And also we can look at whether a word starts with a vowel. And one thing that I do want to mention is we do have words that start with vowels but don't have vowel sounds. So like a university, a unicorn, you've got to watch for that, because it wouldn't be an, and that could throw a child off. It could be a, and they're looking for a particular word that fits in there, and university fits, so it's a university and not an, because they're thinking it needs to start with a vowel. I hope that makes sense. So yes, we need to look at parts of speech, and parts of speech is really important here. We can look at prepositions. Do prepositions make sense where there is a gap? So contextual clues. And just going back to word class, you can ask yourself things like, do I need a word of action? So is it a verb? Adjectives, adverbs, are they describing nouns and verbs? Are we talking about a number of something, so determinants? Or do we need a substitute for a noun, which would be a pronoun, etc.? With context, what you need to look for are clues surrounding the blank. So quite often with children, if they don't read the passage first, they'll rush throw in words, and then they won't realise that the answer is there in the next sentence. So, you know, they could have got the context from the sentence. Quite often, closed passages are looking for synonyms. So, for instance, my daughter's bedroom is neat and blank, blah, 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 blah. So tidy is an obvious synonym for neat. Also, we have a contrast and comparing clues. So, for instance, all the donkeys in the field had brown saddles, whereas all the horses in the field had grey saddles. So are we comparing something? And with cause and effect as well. So the man lay awake all night long. He could not sleep because he had had 3 cups of very strong coffee. So things like that can help us. Grammar clues, look for clues in grammar. So and figurative and idiomatic expressions. So things like there is no crying over spilt milk, for example. So you know that milk is going to go in there, and it's raining cats and blah. It's not going to be it's raining cats and donkeys. It's going to be dogs. So things like that. And also, with my kids, with Cloze, there was a tendency to really rush at it. And although certainly for the 11+ tests, quite often time is a huge constraint. But what I always said to the kids is, if a Cloze has 10 blanks, it's better to get 6 of them correct than get 10 of them wrong. So if they can only manage, obviously we aim to finish everything in an 11+ test, but if they're really struggling and they're getting them all wrong, and I remember my kids, their confidence fell once we started to actually apply a technique. They got much better, but it was slowing down, reading, understanding the context, thinking about parts of speech, but also only fill in a word if you're absolutely sure about it. And remember, reading one sentence quite often gave them the answer to the next, and so on and so on. So I hope that helps. If I've missed anything, or if any tutors, because I'm not a tutor, and I always say this, if any tutors want to add anything in the comments, please do, because I'm sure there are lots of other tips that I've not thought of. Yeah, and I'll try and answer them, and I'll look forward to hearing your tips and tricks. Bye. Thanks.